The cameras were rolling, the audience was cheering, and then 14-year-old Aspen Moore stood at the Family Feud podium, with the bewildered expression of someone experiencing everything for what felt like the first time, their eyes scanning the unfamiliar faces around them with the careful attention of someone who had learned that each moment existed in isolation, disconnected from any memory of what had come before or any expectation of what might be remembered afterward. When Steve Harvey asked about your biggest fear, Aspen's response, delivered with the heartbreaking honesty of someone who lived in an eternal present where every relationship had to be rebuilt from scratch each day, would reveal what it means to lose the ability to form new memories and to watch your life become a series of disconnected moments that fade as quickly as they arrive. "That I won't remember you tomorrow," Aspen had said, their words carrying the weight of 18 months spent living in a world where faces became strangers overnight, where conversations disappeared from memory within hours, and where the people they loved most had to reintroduce themselves every single day because Aspen's brain could no longer build the bridges between past experiences and present reality. "I have a brain injury that stops me from making new memories. My family has to tell me who they are every morning." The studio had fallen into a profound silence as everyone present tried to understand what it would mean to exist without the ability to remember experiences, to build relationships through accumulated shared moments, or to learn and grow from the continuity of memory that most people take completely for granted in their daily lives. Aspen Moore had suffered a severe traumatic brain injury 18 months earlier, in a bicycle accident that had left them in a coma for 3 weeks and had caused extensive damage to the hippocampus and other brain structures responsible for memory formation. When they had finally awakened, Aspen's family had been overjoyed that they had survived and retained most of their cognitive abilities, personality, and memories from before the accident. But it had gradually become apparent that while Aspen's past remained intact, their ability to form new memories had been completely destroyed. Anterograde amnesia, the condition that resulted from Aspen's brain injury, meant that while they could remember their childhood, their family relationships, and everything that had happened before the accident, they were unable to consolidate new experiences into long-term memory. Each day began fresh for Aspen, with no memory of the previous day's events, conversations, or experiences, creating an existence that felt like living the same day over and over, while everyone around them continued to age and change. The most devastating aspect of Aspen's condition was the way it affected their relationships with the people they loved most. While Aspen remembered loving their parents, Jennifer and Mark Moore, and their younger brother Tyler from before the accident, they couldn't remember any interactions, conversations, or shared experiences that had occurred since their injury. Each morning, Aspen woke up thinking it was the day after their accident, confused about why they were in a different room, why their family looked older, and why everyone seemed to know things about their life that they couldn't remember. The daily routine that the Moore family had developed to help Aspen navigate their memory loss was both touching and heartbreaking. Each morning, Jennifer would sit with Aspen and carefully explain what had happened, that they had been in an accident, that they had a memory condition, that 18 months had passed, and that their family loved them and was taking care of them. She would show Aspen photos, read them entries from a detailed journal she kept, and try to help them understand their current reality. But even these daily explanations couldn't be retained. By evening, Aspen would have forgotten the morning's conversation and would be confused again about their situation. They would ask the same questions repeatedly throughout the day, have the same realizations about their condition multiple times, and experience the same shock and sadness about their memory loss as if learning about it for the first time. The impact on Aspen's education and development had been profound and challenging to address. While they retained all their academic knowledge from before the accident and could engage in complex conversations about topics they had learned previously, they were unable to acquire new information or skills. Each school day was like their first day, with no memory of teachers, classmates, lessons, or assignments from previous days. The school system had struggled to accommodate Aspen's unique needs, as traditional educational approaches were based on the assumption that students could build on previously learned material. Teachers had to develop entirely new strategies for helping Aspen participate in daily activities without relying on memory of past experiences or expectations of future retention. The social impact of Aspen's condition had been perhaps the most difficult aspect for their family to witness. Friends who had tried to maintain relationships with Aspen had found it heartbreaking and confusing to realize that every interaction felt like a first meeting from Aspen's perspective. The shared history that forms the foundation of friendship was completely one-sided, with friends remembering years of experiences that Aspen couldn't access. Aspen had also struggled with the emotional impact of their condition, experiencing daily cycles of confusion, sadness, and acceptance as they learned repeatedly about their brain injury and its effects. Each day brought the same grief process as Aspen realized they had lost their ability to form memories, worried about their future, and tried to understand what their life would be like without the ability to remember new experiences. The family dynamics around Aspen's memory loss had been complex and emotionally challenging for everyone involved. Jennifer and Mark had found it devastating to watch their child experience the same realizations and emotions repeatedly, knowing that any comfort or progress made during one day would be completely lost by the next morning. Tyler, Aspen's younger brother, had found it particularly difficult to adjust to having a sibling who couldn't remember their post-accident relationship. While Aspen remembered Tyler as their younger brother from before the injury, they couldn't remember the ways Tyler had grown and changed, the conversations they'd had about Aspen's condition, or the new dynamics that had developed in their family. The practical challenges of caring for someone with anterograde amnesia had required the Moore family to develop systems and routines that could function without relying on Aspen's memory. They had created detailed written schedules, used constant reminders and explanations, and structured Aspen's environment to be as consistent and predictable as possible. The medical team treating Aspen had been honest about the permanence of their condition. Unlike some forms of memory loss that can improve with time and rehabilitation, the specific type of brain damage that caused Aspen's amnesia was not expected to heal, and their inability to form new memories would likely be lifelong. Despite the severity of their condition, Aspen had retained their personality, sense of humor, intelligence, and emotional capacity. Within each day, they could engage in meaningful conversations, form temporary connections with people, and experience joy, curiosity, and affection. But these experiences existed only in the present moment, without connection to past experiences or future expectations. The Family Feud application had been submitted by Mark Moore, who had hoped that creating a positive experience for Aspen might provide a day of joy and excitement, even if it couldn't be remembered afterward. He had also thought that the experience might create video documentation that could help Aspen understand something enjoyable about their life when they watched it in the future. During the pre-show preparations, Aspen had been excited and engaged, treating the experience as completely novel and remarkable. The production team had been briefed about their condition and had been patient with the need for repeated explanations and introductions, as Aspen forgot information within minutes of receiving it. The game had been proceeding with Aspen participating enthusiastically in each moment, clearly enjoying the experience, but unable to build on previous answers or remember the flow of the game. The Moore family was competing against the Rodriguez family from Nevada, and while both sides had been playing with good energy, there was something poignant about watching Aspen experience each moment as if it were their first time on television. But when it came time for the category, Your Biggest Fear, and it was Aspen's turn at the buzzer, the question had struck at the heart of the isolation and loss that defined their daily existence, even though they experienced this fear fresh each day without the context of previous worries. Steve Harvey had approached the podium with his usual warm energy, but something about Aspen's innocent confusion and the protective way their family was watching had made him more gentle and attentive than usual. "All right, Aspen," Steve had said softly, "your biggest fear. What comes to mind?" Aspen had looked at Steve with the openness of someone meeting him for what felt like the first time, then answered with the honest vulnerability that came from experiencing their fear as an immediate present reality rather than as a remembered pattern. "That I won't remember you tomorrow," Aspen had said, their words carrying the fresh sadness of someone discovering their limitation anew. "I have a brain injury that stops me from making new memories. My family has to tell me who they are every morning." The studio had become completely quiet as everyone present understood that they were witnessing someone whose experience of time and relationship was fundamentally different from anything they could imagine. Steve had paused, clearly moved by the profound sadness and courage in Aspen's statement. "Aspen," Steve had said gently, "that must be really frightening and confusing. How do you handle not being able to remember things?" "It's like waking up in a different world every day," Aspen had explained with the clarity that came from explaining their situation to themselves repeatedly. "Everyone knows things about me that I can't remember. They tell me stories about things we did together, but it feels like they're talking about someone else." The studio audience had listened with obvious emotion as they learned about a condition that challenged fundamental assumptions about identity, relationship, and the role of memory in human experience. "What's it like for your family?" Steve had asked with genuine concern. "They're really patient," Aspen had said, looking at Jennifer, Mark, and Tyler with love that felt fresh and immediate. They have to take care of me like I'm a little kid sometimes, even though I remember being their family before my accident. Steve had looked at Jennifer and Mark Moore, who were clearly struggling with watching their child describe their daily reality with such acceptance and courage. "Mr. and Mrs. Moore," Steve had said, "how has this changed your family?" "Every day we get to meet Aspen again," Jennifer had said through tears. "It's heartbreaking that they can't remember our new experiences together, but we also get to see them discover joy and love fresh every day." Mark had nodded, his voice thick with emotion. "The hardest part is that Aspen experiences loss over and over," Mark had said. "Every day they have to learn about their condition again, grieve it again, and find ways to accept it again." Steve had looked at Aspen with deep respect and understanding. "Aspen," Steve had said, "what you're dealing with is something most people couldn't imagine, but I want you to know that even if you can't remember this moment tomorrow, it matters today. Every moment we share matters, even if it only exists right now." Steve had begun removing his suit jacket, understanding that this moment required recognition of Aspen's daily courage and the unique way they experienced life and relationships. "Aspen," Steve had said, placing the jacket around their shoulders, "this jacket represents something very special today. It represents the understanding that love doesn't need memory to be real, and that every moment of connection matters, whether it can be remembered or not." Aspen had pulled the jacket closer, clearly moved by the gesture and the recognition of their experience. Steve had turned to address the studio audience. "Ladies and gentlemen," Steve had announced, "Aspen Moore is showing us something profound about living in the present moment and about how love can exist without memory. They're teaching us that every interaction matters, even when it can't be remembered." The game had resumed with increased appreciation for the present moment, as everyone understood that for Aspen, this experience existed only in the immediate present but was no less meaningful for its impermanence. When Steve had asked the final question about things that matter most, Aspen had answered, "Right now, being here with people who care about me." The episode aired 2 months later and became a powerful educational tool about traumatic brain injury and memory disorders. Neurological rehabilitation organizations used Aspen's story to help families understand and cope with memory loss conditions. Aspen's family had kept the jacket and the video recording of their appearance, showing it to Aspen regularly as a reminder of a positive experience they had shared, even though Aspen couldn't remember participating in it. More importantly, the experience had helped their family appreciate the value of present-moment connections that didn't depend on memory for their meaning. The jacket represented the understanding that love and connection can exist without memory, that every moment of kindness matters regardless of whether it can be remembered, and that living fully in the present can be meaningful even when the past can't be accessed and the future can't be retained. Because that's what courage looks like when it faces each day without the safety net of accumulated memory. That's what love sounds like when it chooses to care without the promise of being remembered. And that's what happens when a 14-year-old person teaches everyone around them that the present moment is precious, not because it can be remembered, but because it can be lived fully right now. Aspen Moore would wake up the next day without any memory of their Family Feud appearance, but on that day in the studio they showed that connection, joy, and meaning can exist in the eternal present, and that some of the most profound human experiences transcend the limitations of memory and exist purely in the beauty of the moment when they occur.